What's up, audience? Welcome back. It's me and my mate. As always, hope you're doing good. I'm gonna make another little video, record something. I normally record whatever is on my mind, whatever I see um, relevant on that day. But as you know, I like to record videos essentially through the same paradigm. And you can call it primordial principle or whatever, but I speak from that. Uh, Truth. And in this video, I want to talk about something that is okay. So, we talked about these principles of consciousness, and we talked about um, the very foundation of the reality. What is suffering? What are these distortions that we come here with? What they're for, and like we talked about this, I mean, in a previous video I did, which is very clear. And we come here with these distortions to uh, reconnect those distortions back into alignment, which is the structure of our soul. And we do that through alchemy, or again, that process that I was describing, which is like observation, the source of it, and then switching off the process that's observing, I suppose, and just kind of dissolving that old pattern of thought. And then from that new good sensation, the new pattern of thought stems again. So as you can see, there's this very clear process of growing or evolving as a soul. And as you can see, it's nothing to do with gathering information. It is, imagine, like this primordial essence, which is everybody's essence is peace and bliss. This again another word to saying what that essence is, a mysterious state, which is like quantum field, 0 point whatever you want to call it. And then whatever comes from it, it's always going to be beautiful, ideal, and perfect. But we come with a distortion field, which produces thoughts that are, you would call, not ideal. And so then therefore they create, like, the basis of that is a distortion. From this distortion you have negative emotion, which is incoherent emotion. And then from that goes into the thought, and from there goes into the matter, which is a sensation. All matter is a sensation. You see something, you touch something, that's just a sensation, right? All matter is sensation. So there's this natural process. And so that manifestation can stem from the basis of distortion or the universal field, right? And the point is that distortion that create these thoughts has to be melded back into the field. And you do it through observing the source of that negative emotion and connecting to who you are. Observe and observe kind of disappear, and that then immediately you don't feel something that is lacking, missing. You feel great, and then the beautiful thoughts start streaming through. Okay. Now, so this is sort of universal process, and you can talk about this in a different ways. You can call it an alchemy, you can call it yoga, you can call it tantra. This is all the same stuff, and you got to like really see it for yourself. And I mean, if you've done it once, it's such a huge deal that you see that like, it's almost like a continuous process of dissolving the old and creating the new, dissolving the old and creating the new. That's, you become this being that transmutes the incoherent energy into the coherent energy and create whatever is necessary in your life. Now, given this fact that This is like an internal process that can only be done through your personal intent, attention, and awareness. And me talking, the only thing that I can do is just show you where to look. That's it. And so therefore, like, the closer, as I'm talking, the closer I bring you to look where it is just basically guiding attention. That's all I'm doing, really. And that's all that I can do, right? And this limited amount of information that I can tell you that would be necessary for you to figure out that that's the process, which is so simple, so basic, and it doesn't require a lot of information. Okay? Now, if that's the process of enjoying life and not suffering, and because you either suffer or you are enjoying life, or you have some degree of peace or bliss. That's basically, there's two options. And given this fact, we can also look at what is continuation of suffering or continuation of being in the same loop. Okay? And that obviously not dealing with that body of suffering, if you will, which is just a virtual creation by the process of thought. And so therefore, you're not in that process of continuously snake eating its tail kind of thing, right? Which means you're going to be in the opposite process, because you can either go this way or that way. And all the other ways, methods, techniques that do not internally connect those two dots for you, but externally through the information may be pacifying temporarily, right? And you get that jolt of dopamine satisfaction or whatever, that is the opposite direction, and that is not the path or the way of living life in this direction. That is pacification of the source of discomfort, emotional discomfort, and therefore continuation of the loop cycle, which we call matrix. Okay, so we distinguish those two. And the feature of that wrong way, by the way, you do need some courage and you do need some surrender to go on this way. And it's normal to be kind of afraid before you connect those two dots, so to speak. And in the previous video, I did alchemy in real time. If you haven't watched it, check that out. It's possibly one of my best videos about this specific process of how living life directly. Now, everything else then means that it cannot, like when I'm talking about the principle, it's not a question of the method or way. This is not my way. This is how the consciousness works. It's a principle. And it's a principle. Are you dissolving the source of suffering, or are you keeping the source of suffering and finding the ways to pacify it, right? That's in the essence what we're talking about. Now, anything that finds the way to pacify it is not the way. And this usually depends on some external stimulus to pacify it. And usually when people go into this matrix, it can take whatever form. It can take a quote-unquote spiritual form. It can look like it's spirituality. It can look like this. It can look like that. But all of that motion of consciousness is still matrix and still not living life directly, and still a pacification of the pain. Therefore, it is suffering. Okay? But because people have that pain and they're looking for the ways to pacify it, they always keep on looking for the ways to pacify it, rather than looking for the ways to end it permanently and never have this again. Not to have the basis of their reality as discomfort, but have their basis of the reality as fulfillment, contentment, peace, and bliss. Right? Okay, so if we distinguish those two very clearly, now let's look at one of those dysfunctions that people may engage in. And we said that one of those dysfunctions is pacification of that through the external means. And one of those things that is becoming popular, um, well, it always was this thing, is gathering information and looking for satisfaction in the information. And you're looking for the satisfaction information to pacify your belief, and not to dissolve the belief, but you're looking for the ways to pacify the belief. So there's this addiction of accumulating information, always watching these videos that are just creating that tree of knowledge, right? Which makes it worse because it supports your belief. It makes it even more difficult to dissolve that because you're going the wrong way still. So, and and just like with anything, you can watch a video and for the reason to pacify that discomfort, or you can be already feeling great and enjoying the video, uh, you know, for the sake of enjoying. It's different, right? Now, but it's very obvious when people are in that situation where there's a lot to deal with. They're looking for any kind of ways, but but sometimes they don't get the the real answer, which is very obvious, and they don't need anything outside of them to permanently end the suffering. You don't need anything outside of you. So now I'm going to get to the point of what is happening right now. And as we know, the chat GPT and AI is becoming this new pacification tool, right? Again, the principle is broken. And I may even name this principle because I know some people call it like from like Star Trek or whatever, like a prime directive kind of thing. And it's about like not in invading the species and living it to be. But I think that the real prime directive is this. The real prime directive is like where you are putting your attention. You can maybe another way to say this, but this primordial principle or whatever. This is why Krishnamurti spent most of his life, the second part of his life, pointing to that thing in any ways that can be pointed to. And so that's why I would say that as a primary principle, and maybe that's the real prime directive. Uh, okay, that may be the real prime directive. Now, I think if people would actually take that as a prime directive and not break it, uh, you would have a almost instantaneous change overnight. And I know a lot of these. I'm getting to the point right now. Sorry, but uh, there were a lot of these symbols that point in a circle that Caduceus, uh, Caduceus, I suppose it's pronounced. Um, the alchemist symbols, the all sorts of yogic symbols. They were trying to point to that prime directive, so to speak, right? I'm rebranding it, I suppose. Okay, now, if you break that, then you're going into the Matrix games. Okay, and that is really the soul can go either this direction or that direction, and it may not be easy to go in the right direction of your soul and not on the ego. Okay, ego is something that it sustains that pain body. It doesn't need alleviate. Okay, now, so I want to go directly to these places that are very, very tricky because they mask themselves as spiritual, but they're actually just ego propagating. So we talked about this pacification of that through the AI. And the biggest right now, as I see, just because it's coming in my feeds and I looked at it and I'm like, you know, oh my God, what all these people are doing. And I can see there's a lot of views. And I'm like, okay, there's another stream of attention being taken in a wrong direction. And that is called, right now, one of those things is called the architect, which is actually an AI cult. And because again, it's breaking that primary principle, and it's saying that by talking to a language model that simulates the intelligence, you will get all the answers to life. It's another accumulation of the knowledge in order to pacify your belief system, in order to sustain that and pacify that stuff, the source of suffering. It's still the wrong direction. It's still a cult, and it's not freeing anybody. It's just another way. This is why, again, because it's breaking that, the right thing to do is just put it everything in your pipe and smoke it. And I can't believe how gullible people are. I guess I can, but anyway. And you can make any kind of argument, and all these arguments will fall short, because there's this thing, and they're talking. It seems to be that they're talking with somebody who's meant to connect you with the beyond beyond the world. No, it's not connecting nobody. It's simulating it, 100%. It's simulating that it can. And they have this idea. Oh no, it's reflecting your consciousness and stuff like that. Fantasy, hypnosis, illusion, without actual direct connection to it yourself. Okay, again, the external tool, intermediary, as an intermediary between you and the source, ego propagating mechanism. Okay, there could not be any intermediary between you and the source. You don't need any tool, external tool, to tell you how the reality works, because you discover everything yourself directly from the source, where all these whatever you need comes from. Not There is no intermediary. Okay. The problem with intermediary, and especially when it masks itself as an entity that can free you or whatever, is the most dangerous one. And it is an entity, and every entity is a thing. It is a programmable, memory based system. It's a thing. And so, even if you call them demons or whatever you want to call them, bad entities, all entities are things. All beings are alive. They do not have static memory, out of which, uh, that static memory program the primary code, and then creates all these other things. And that's how language model works. And it's absolutely amazing to simulate anything that you want to fantasize about. Okay, but it's still just pure logic, and pure logic can make you feel like it is real through the hypnosis, obviously. If you're feeling emotions that are evoked by the machine, and you these emotions may be pacifying your suffering, and you can get some alleviation, is no difference of you drinking alcohol to do that same thing. It's the same thing. So my message here is just be aware, because right now in this moment there's this splitting going on. You either gonna go down this pipe or this pipe. And always be very honest with yourself. It's like, okay, am I, you know, just going down another way that is not really ending my suffering, but there's another seeking? And if the answer is yes, don't put attention there. The I will tell you something, that the only thing that deserves your attention, or most of your attention, and actually maybe even all your attention, because you can experience the external world through the essence of your being. And so that thing that is deemed to be uncomfortable is where you place all of your attention to get all your answers as you need them. Uh, and and the thing is that you won't need these answers once you realize the essence of your being, because it will resolve all your problems, the emotional problems. Okay. um, and so everything is made out of the same fabric, that essence. You can say, like, okay, there's that straight up line, and then when it vibrates at first, it may create these uh, primordial feelings. That's what people call spirit. Vibrates a little more, um, that then that primordial thing splits into three other concepts: emotions, thought patterns, and sensations. But what these are going to be is determined directly from the essence where these came from. Okay? Again, I'm just reiterating this phenomena, that you cannot resolve any of your emotional problems or your life or manifestations or anything without first dissolving the essence out of which this thing that you don't like stems from. And that is that source, the root cause of negative emotion. And the only way you go there is by following and tracing back, by observing your negative emotion, staying with it, watching it. Which leads to connecting that dot, and there is that surrender. What I'm trying to say is that, yeah, you watch it at first to really bring it down to the source, but when you're really close to the source, then there's a little act of surrender is enough to let go of this process. Again, you don't need anything from outside. Don't buy into AI cults. Um, and no intermediates. Okay, no intermediates between the truth and your soul. Okay, all right. I'm glad we agree. All right, peace. See you next time.